Right, so it is day 109 of my attempt to plant a tree every single day for 2023, and so far it's going pretty well. So let's get on with it. Right, so today's planting is quite a different one. So as per usual for this time of year, I'm digging a pretty deep hole to break through the hard pan, which is the sort of layer of finer sediment deeper in the soil, which has basically been compacted by years of rainfall. It's not very deep here because a lot of the topsoil has been washed and blown away in this particular spot because it's been very bare for a long time. But this time I'm not putting a lot of water at the bottom there, I'm just putting a little bit to keep things soft, because really the reason I want to break the hard pan this time isn't for roots to go down, it's for when it rains next, for the rain to go down relatively swiftly, because a lot of these things here won't want to be sitting wet for too long. So today's tree is Kalanchoe beharensis, which is sometimes called the felt bush or elephant ear or tree kalanchoe. As far as I know, it's the only kalanchoe that reaches these proportions. It's not a huge tree, it gets to about 4 meters, it has a fairly nice open canopy, and it should be a nice little one to add to what will eventually become the light sub-canopy to the Mopani trees here. This canopy will be interacting probably within the next 3 to 4 years with the carrot tree canopy, and there should be a nice sort of toxic barrier sort of supergroup going on there. Now, because this is usually my toxic barrier, it's actually going to be a little bit of overkill here, a little bit like it was with the Annona the other day. But we are going to put in 2 prickly barriers. So one of them is an aloe, which I do not know the name of, which is going to be a recurring theme today. It's one I have been propagating but have not yet seen flower, so I cannot tell you the name. It does grow quite low, but it should be fine out because this one seems to be growing from stems sitting on top of the ground and its roots grow into the ground. I have planted one out previously and it hasn't been bothered by mole rats, so hopefully it's not one that they find palatable, and hopefully even if they do nibble at the roots, there's enough of that stem above the ground that it shouldn't be an issue. We also are putting in an Apuntia that I don't have the name of in my head. This is the bunny ears Apuntia. It's quite a popular ornamental one. I've never actually tried it flat in the soil before. I suspect it will want quite a lot of drainage. It does grow like a weed in pots and in sort of off the ground situations, so it should settle in pretty well. And again, this is just sand, so even though this is quite compacted sand, with that breaking of the hard pan, this should drain pretty well, and it shouldn't be too much of an issue for them. Then we're going to be putting in one I do know the name of, which is the Cotyledon barbae, which is the bushveld cotyledon, which is relatively similar chemically to the Kalanchoe. They are quite closely related, they're both crassulaceae, so it's not that much of a toxic barrier, but should add a nice little bit of colourful flowering here, which should keep the pollinators interested, which is just something I like to do because pollinators are good. And then finally, because we do need an actual toxic barrier rather than just 2 pricklies and one that is the same chemically as our main plant, I'm going to be putting in one of the euphorbias, which again, I do know the name of, but it's not in my head right now, so that will be up on the screen. This is a low-growing one, which is usually in shady situations, I think. This is actually one that I did have in a large pot, but the chickens decided to nest in the pot several times and kicked it to pieces. And so then all those pieces I've been growing in yogurt pots, and I thought it was about time I tried planting some out and see if it can survive the chickens in that setting. It's very nice and toxic, as are most of the euphorbias, so it should be quite nice for protecting this. Right, so that should be it for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, well done for watching this far anyway. Please tune in again tomorrow if you did enjoy it, because I will be planting another tree and I don't know what yet. So this is Lygodactylus, and I think it's Lygodactylus capensis, but there's a few species around. I'm not that great at separating them, or pretty similar. But it is asleep, as far as I can tell, and I think it's also female. It's quite hard to tell when a gecko is asleep generally, because her eyes don't really close, but generally speaking, these little guys, if they're not sprinting away, they're asleep. But they look very, very much like the day geckos, but they're not that closely related. They're much more closely related to things like the house geckos, but they are day active, and so they become very day gecko-like, including having little round pupils. But beautiful little things. They just eat ants and termites. They're quite innocuous little creatures. They rarely live to a whole year. They just produce lots of little young. They do come in a whole range of colours, but they're really cute little creatures, and yeah, very, very personable for a gecko that must be about 7 centimeters long, including his tail. And there we go, it has woken up.